When I was about 12 or 13, my parents were gone for a while, and I was just staying up really late, past midnight on my desktop computer waiting for them to come home. Like most people, I had been told a million times not to talk to strangers on the internet, but about half my friends are on Discord, where people I had never met before. So I was just chatting with a bunch of them. Out of nowhere, one of my online friends had told me exactly what I had been doing the past hour and what I was eating, drinking, playing with. I instantly got a horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach. My desktop was set up in front of a big window, so as far as I knew, this person I had been talking to that was supposed to live in a different country than me had found my address and been watching me through the window. Turns out, he had somehow hacked into my webcam. I always left it plugged in, even though I had been warned not to when I wasn't using it, and had been frequently watching me through it whenever he wanted. It's been 10 years and I still have all the cameras on my devices covered in thick duct tape. The house my dad lived in at the time, it was really old. Built in the early 1800s, there were plenty of times I'd be sitting in the living room and distinctly hear the cabinets opening and closing in the kitchen. It was just me and my dad that lived in the house, and you could clearly see when his bedroom door was shut and he was asleep, but still hear it. Normally, my dad worked 7-3, but occasionally worked a PM or overnight shift. One night he was working until 11. I was 17 at the time. Around 8 or so, I'm sitting in my room playing Borderlands, and think I hear footsteps coming from the living room, which was adjacent to my bedroom, and assume my dad's home early. Go back to playing Borderlands. I keep hearing the steps, so I pause the game and listen. And the footsteps are just slowly pacing back and forth between the living room and the kitchen in a steady rhythm. I laid in bed scared shitless and actually counted the steps. Every time it took 15 paces to the living room, 15 back to the kitchen. Needless to say, I did not sleep that night. Had another situation at my mom's house about 2 years prior to this. Out of nowhere, my alarm clock would go off at midnight every night. I assumed it was busted and got rid of it. Fast forward to years, my mom gets another brand new alarm clock for my room also when I was 17. Suddenly, alarm goes off at midnight. I thought nothing of it, turned it off. Happened again the next night, and then my sister pointed out the old one I had. That did it. So I checked and made sure no alarms were set. Double checked at 11:56. Sure enough, 4 minutes later my alarm goes off. Freaked out. I threw it out. That next night was my dad's night to have me. I had a buddy of mine over, and my dad was working that night. He left for work around 2 a.m. and my friend had brought over an iPod dock to listen to music on. Didn't have the clock set or anything. My friend knew nothing of the last couple nights, so I knew he wasn't just playing with me. So about 2 minutes after my dad leaves, we hear an alarm clock coming from my room. I went in, and you know how if you just plug in a clock without setting it, the numbers just blink on and off. Well, it was doing that. As soon as I picked it up, the clock set itself to 12 o'clock and then just turned off by itself. When I was around 11 or so, and our parents left us home alone for a while, so my siblings and I were all playing hide and seek in the house. Now, I know under the bed is the first place you always look, but for whatever reason, I decided to hide under my little sister's bed in her dark room. So I get down on the floor and squeeze under and wait for the seeker to come looking for me. And as I am laying there waiting, I hear a little girl giggle next to me. I could clearly see I was the only one under the bed. I was the only one in the room, and I shot out from under the bed and told everyone what happened. And that's where we ended the game. I had just moved into my first apartment. It was around 8:30 p.m. and I heard the doorknob moving like someone was putting a key in it and turning and knocking. At first, I got really excited that my boyfriend was home, but then realized it was only 8:30 and he was due home from work around 10:30. So I looked out the kitchen window and didn't see his car or anyone's car I had known parked outside. That's when I panicked. The doorknob kept moving for a few more seconds and then stopped. A few minutes later, they had some piece of metal they were sticking between the door, trying to open the door. I freaked out at that point and locked myself in the bathroom with a knife and called 911. They tried to pry the door open for about 3 minutes before they stopped. The police surveyed the area and found an elderly man roaming around with a knife and a crowbar. He used to live in that apartment and he wanted his stuff back that we stole when we moved in. I was told he was really delusional. I'm so thankful and glad I didn't answer the door once I realized it was no one I knew. To this day, my heart stops when someone knocks on my door. I live in Canada with my family in our grandfather house. We were shifted here in 2003 after the death of my father. The first night we shifted here, I heard strange noises as if two women are talking. The language was strange. In the morning, I told my mother about it, but she said it was my imagination. I went to college and forgot the entire thing that happened last night. It's my habit to study at night. At about 2:30, I put my books away and went into my bed. It was December night, and mist was all over the place. As I was trying to sleep, I thought I heard something very close to me. As I opened my eyes, I saw a strange lady in my window. Her face was very large and her features were like Chinese woman, and her hair was black and long. I was so scared that I couldn't move an inch. That woman kept staring at me and then vanished. I rushed to my mother's room. I told my mother, and she said nothing. That night, I slept with her. In the morning, my mother told that strange things do happen in this house since she was child, and that these things never did harm to any family member in the house. Well, many things still happens, but that was the scariest thing happened to me. These experiences I'm going to share today date back to 2010 or 2011 when I would be 4/5 years old. My uncle and aunt used to rent a house in the same city as ours. They had 4 children, 2 daughter and 2 son. All of them were in their teens except for the youngest daughter, who was 7 or 8 years old. Coming back to that night, I'll try to explain everything I remember. Because you see, I was very young then and had been in preschool for only 2 years. But even at that age, I knew about the existence of ghosts and stuff due to some other experiences. A bit about the house. It was not so big. It had only 2 bedrooms. One was big, and the other was half the size of the first one. Both rooms were connected by a door. The big room had the door leading to the smaller room in one corner and another door leading to the balcony in one corner. Both these doors were on the same side of the room, and the bed faced these 2 doors. My mother, me, and my 2 siblings along with my aunt and her 2 daughters slept in the big room, and my uncle and his 2 sons slept in the small room. That night we all slept after some chit-chat and stories, probably. So it would have been pretty late at night when I got up by the sound of someone knocking on the door leading to the smaller room. I didn't see the time. The knocks were violent, and the person knocking the door never spoke. I was more puzzled than scared, as I had just gotten up from deep sleep and was trying to understand what was going on. That person couldn't be any of the 3 men who wanted to use the washroom or the kitchen, as the bath and the kitchen were on the other side of the house, led by the small room. Even if it was one of them, he must have said something instead of banging the door in the middle of the night. After a few minutes, the knock stopped on that door, and it started on the door leading to the balcony. How would that person have gotten into the balcony, as there was no other entrance except that door? I know you must be thinking maybe it was someone from my sister or cousins who went into the balcony, but everyone was sleeping peacefully despite the loud bangs. Now I got scared, so I shook my mother, who was sleeping next to me, to see who was knocking. But she said she couldn't hear any knocks, and I was just imagining it, and I should go to sleep. My aunt and her children also experienced unusual things while staying there. They would hear someone laughing in the washroom when no one would be using it. My cousin would be standing in the kitchen, and she would feel someone walk past the kitchen even when there was no one. Things disappearing and reappearing at the same place all by themselves, and strange and unexplainable things happening. Once my aunt was not at home, and the landlords who lived downstairs told my aunt that they could hear someone crying in the laundry area. They asked who it was, but no one responded. Worried, one of them went upstairs to investigate, but no one was there. So that person got scared and ran down. My aunt lived in that house for 3 to 4 years, and then she moved out for some reason. I don't know in what state that house is now, and I never asked my aunt anything about it because her life is already very messed up. I think whatever or whoever lived there never meant to harm anyone except for scaring them and freaking them out. Maybe it just wanted people to be aware of its presence. So many things happened, but these are the experiences I can never forget.